On the previous day's journey, we considered God's promise of lion-like leaders who would lead Abraham's descendants in a conquest of the land he promised to give them. But before that happened, Abraham's descendants found themselves enslaved in a foreign land, and they needed a deliverer. So, God said to Moses in Exodus chapter 3, "I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land, and into a good land and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. So now, go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people the Israelites out of Egypt." God promised Abraham that his descendants would become very numerous, that they would take possession of Canaan, form a nation, and settle there. But before all that ever happened, a severe famine fell upon the land during the days of Abraham's grandson Jacob. This widespread famine prompted Jacob and his family to get up and move southwest to Egypt, because food was still available there. When they arrived, the Pharaoh showed them much favor by allowing them to live in the lush land of Goshen. But that Pharaoh's favor gave way to the next Pharaoh's fury. The next Pharaoh treated the Israelites in precisely the opposite way. He enslaved them, forcing them to build pyramids and palaces to push the progress of imperial Egypt forward. God's promises now seemed far from being fulfilled. Yes, Abraham's descendants were certainly numerous, but they lived far from the promised land of Canaan. They were enslaved in a foreign land. Their baby boys were being killed, and it seemed like all they had to look forward to was the next crack of the whip and the next baby's burial. They must have wondered if God had forgotten his promises. But no, God never forgets his promises. He saw their misery. He heard the cries of his people, and he raised up a deliverer. During a time when all the baby Hebrew boys were destined for death in the Nile, little Moses was saved in the very waters that were intended to serve as his grave. While safely afloat in a miniature ark of reeds, he was not only discovered by Pharaoh's daughter, he was rescued by Pharaoh's daughter and then raised in Pharaoh's palace. And after 40 years of living in Egypt and learning the ways of Egypt, Moses fled to the wilderness. There, far away from all positions of power and places of prosperity and pleasure, Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness where he learned to care for sheep. After these 80 years of preparation, 40 in Egypt, 40 in the wilderness, God called Moses to go back to Egypt. That's because God was going to use Moses to deliver his people from the grip of evil Lord Pharaoh. In his work as deliverer, Moses prefigured or pictured the work of Jesus, the coming Savior. By delivering 10 powerful plagues that pummeled Egypt, and by drowning evil Lord Pharaoh and his army in the waters of the Red Sea, Moses pictured Jesus, the great deliverer. Jesus, who rescued us from enslavement to the evil Lord Satan, and who defeated the last enemy, death, by rising victorious from the dead. By leading the Israelites through the wilderness and protecting them and providing for them along the way, Moses also pictured Jesus as the great shepherd who leads us along our way throughout life. Thank Jesus that through his atoning death and powerful resurrection, he delivers you from the eternal death you deserve. Also thank Jesus for being an ever-present shepherd who protects you, provides for you, and guides you through his word and spirit all throughout your life.